Welcome to Across the Pond Wargamers, a podcast dedicated to the wargaming hobby. And it looks like it's recording on my side. Recording on your side?
Yep, now it's either way down.
Hey, we're live, and I haven't completely forgotten how to do this. Well, hello, folks. This is Gary and Collin again for Across the Pond Wargamers, back after a long extended break. Hopefully we can get these back on a regular track. No guarantees, but we're going to try. Tonight's show is a little bit different in the fact that, one, we're taping at night when normally we used to tape early in the mornings for majority of our shows. And second of all, we don't have a guest. It's just going to be the two of us gassing on about whatever we want to talk about. Other than that, we can start off with, hey, Collin. So, Collin, what have you been working on?
Oh no. Actually, no. I've been keeping myself busy in between listening to different podcasts and watching different videos out there about our great hobby. I've stayed quite busy with just buying things, honestly. I haven't done any painting or modeling. My career's kind of taken a stroke towards the busy side because I'm transitioning in between two right now. But a few cool things I've bought is, some people might remember this old model kit set made by Heller, but I went and gone out and bought a couple of Owlet 3s, which the Owlet 3 is the helicopter that the Fire Force for Rhodesia turned into their G and K cars, which they used in very successful tactics to employ against a few militia groups backed by Chinese and Soviets. So I'm going to take these very basic older models that were probably manufactured in the 60s or 70s and try and turn them into G and K cars.
So what's the difference between a G car and a K car?
Honestly, without the material in front of me, I forget which one is which, but one has, I believe, 30 cal twin 30 cal machine guns sitting out the side, and the other one is a command car. I believe it's the K car. I don't think the K stands for command, but it may. But that has a 20 millimeter gun on the left side of the helicopter. Left side is if you're flying it. But yeah, the commander would sit in the K car, and there'd be at least 3 G cars in support. 3 G cars would land around wherever the guerrillas were spotted, and the K car would have a radio inside of it and direct the troops that landed from the G cars towards the target. And there'd also be, I believe, 28 paratroopers who would drop on the other side, and they move in a straight solid line and sweep the area, because a lot of that the Rhodesian countryside that they'd be sweeping is very dense and thick. So you pretty much have to get in a firing line, almost like you're hunting quail, and push towards insurgents. So yeah, I'm interested in just playing out those tactics and seeing how I can work them and seeing how they've really worked in real life.
Now, have you gotten any rules to go along with those?
A couple. So one for just blasting vehicles. It comes from peterpig. It's the AK-47. I know those rules are a lot of fun, especially the pre-game rule episode that you have there. And then I've also thought on Force on Force. They do have a Bush War supplement, which is quite in-depth and thorough, and I do like it.
Yeah, I know I like Force on Force for the modern stuff, and used to do a lot of that back in Jacksonville. Really enjoyed that stuff, but because now the figures you've been getting for the Bush Wars, are they mostly Peter Pig or GHQ, or not GHQ? Oh, who's the other one that you've been getting?
So yeah, I have been getting QRF. QRF still has a great figure line. They're not the newest or most modern, but I love their sculpts. Something about them just drives me crazy. Their vehicles, some aspects are a little older, and the way you put them together, like, it's not trendy with these new plastics that fit modularly, or like the new 3D prints, they don't fit together as well. But if you like some good old style heft, in your figures, which I love. Good old style heft. And QRF's definitely the way to go. You also have Command Decision, which is carried by Blue Moon and Old Glory, or yeah, Old Glory, not Blue Moon. And they have what I think I can get $12 for a pack of 50 figures. That's insane for 12 or 15
That's
millimeter.
great.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, if you get an Old Glory membership, it's dangerous. Really dangerous.
So it pays for itself pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
So
And then I know peterpig definitely has a great line of 15 millimeter.
yeah, well, I know they've always had good bush war figures and that, and I've had some of their mounted Rhodesians I've used for skirmishes in Nicaragua. But you know, Jeff from QRF, I remember when we first met Jeff years ago, and over there, and he just was a nice guy, just a nice guy, and very knowledgeable about some of the stuff that he was doing about the BOAR, you know, British Army of the Rhine, and BAOR, not BOR. You gotta forgive me, folks. It's coming up on 10 o'clock at night, my time. I've also had a little bit of rum tonight and been pretty tired lately, so I may not get all my words right on this taping.
Shameless excuses. No,
Yeah, I know.
I'm just
I
playing
know.
with you.
I'm an old fart. I'm allowed. So, anything else? How's oh, there was something else you were working on too. I forgot.
I do know I've been working on the 1808, 1809 Russian Finnish, or the Finnish War
That was it.
between Sweden and Russia. I've been going very slowly, honestly.
Yeah.
I know I need to create a bunch of birch trees, which there's this page called The Ancients, and they show you how to make really quick birch trees by using barbecue sticks. You cut them, put them on a base, and then you paint them, or you spray paint them white. You put like a gray wash on top of it, and then you take clump foam and stick it on top. It's not the most detailed or prettiest, but it looks very effective. And you could probably produce like a few hundred birch trees, which you need for Finland.
So now that's 15 mil, right?
Yep, or you can use it for any scale.
Yeah, but I
Barclay
mean,
skewers,
the figures you're doing are 15, right?
Yeah, doing that and the Winter War, so that way I
Okay.
can do Finnish terrain that lasts for over 100 years. I have no issues with it.
Yeah, we got some good things going on there. I just wish I could say I have done nothing. I have a couple weeks ago, I pulled out some of my Baron's War figures and some of the plastics there and started to assemble, but I think I got about what, a dozen maybe 18 figures built, and that's it for the last year. That's my whole range of production. I did start to inventory my GHQ though, the stuff that's still in packages and boxes and things like that, to see just what I have. I definitely have a very sizable convoy contingent of about roughly 30 different merchantmen from GHQ's Micronaut series. So that's a lot of merchants out there. Plus I've got enough to do the Battle of the River Platte, the Battle of the North Atlantic with the Bismarck making the escape, got all the ships for that. And that's just the British box that I've opened up, you know, that had British and Germans in it. So I still have my other boxes to go through with everything else. So starting to slowly but surely make some headway on that.
That's quite nice because you only need a few destroyers, maybe in the teens worth of merchantmen, and a few U-boats, or maybe even the turrets.
Yeah, well, they've got one of the ships that's in the collection there is the Altmark, which is a German merchant raider. Which, you know, my scenario on that. In fact, and folks, to our listeners, we had the last show we taped never made it to air because we had some sort of technical difficulty that I, for the life of me, cannot figure out. We have a screeching noise, a buzzing and screeching noise that runs through the entire tape, all the tracks. And it's just, you know, I shouldn't say all the tracks. The tracks are divided into 3 tracks, you know, our guest, Collin and myself, and our guest track the screech was all through it. And we talked about naval warfare, naval wargaming, things like that. And I want to get him back on to retape that show, to retape it and retalk, because it was a good conversation. Great guy to talk to. But we'll have him back on. But that was the last thing we were talking about. And then that one I talked about my Merchant Raider game that I love to do, such like that. So, but that's about it. But that's all I've been up to. That and work. Work's been absolutely insane. Home life has been absolutely insane. So nothing is, 2021 was one of those years that you want to put behind you and want to forget. And 2022 is so far has not been much easier, but we'll get there. So there's too many good things coming out now that are just definitely have interested.
Yeah, I know that one of the good things that came out last year is what you're starting with Baron's War. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
I love the figures. The figures are absolutely beautiful. I only have about 10 of their figures, and the rest of them are the duo of, oh shoot, how do you pronounce that?
But the 10 figures you have, that's from Footsore, correct?
Yeah, the
Okay.
Footsore, Baron's War, those are their figures. And I've got a couple of their command packs and a couple of their personality figures. And they're just absolute beautiful sculpts. They are fantastic. I think some of the best looking sculpts I got. Now, I did say for Christmas, I did get some very good sculpts that I'll be using for the Baron's War. And they're for the Monty Python Holy Grail figures. I got the King and I got Lancelot, and I got their what do you call them? Their squires carrying all the packs. Who made those? Who made those figures?
Oh shoot, I can't even remember right now.
They were fantastic. I mean, if any, and they're definitely going to be in my Baron's War collection. One of my Baron's War scenarios. They're some of the best looking. There's another, again, excellent sculpts. Can't remember who those, but who did my plastic?
Studio Miniatures, I think, is the one with the
yeah, Studio Miniatures did the Monty Python.
Yep.
Right.
With the coconuts and all.
It's hilarious. Thus,
yeah, I know I told you we need to model the two sparrows with the piece of rope in between them and the coconut.
Yeah, got to get that. I love that. I think that is just absolutely hilarious. And they're just, yes. But yeah, Fireforge Games are the other ones. The miniatures I have from them, they're duo, and I can't pronounce it right, dual volt figures. I got a bunch of their plastics that I started to assemble for Baron's War as well.
Great for just filling out the ranks.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to be getting more of the Fireforge Games as soon as I get rid of some of my other lead to finance those.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
because they're really nice figures.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely beautiful, just not cheap.
No, they're not. They're not, but they're
worth the price though.
Yes, if you want, and the problem is, what worries me is I'm such a crap painter that I'm not going to do those figures justice, and they're really some nice movement, very animated, realistic, just everything about them I really like. Some of my favorite figures. So,
well, if you're worried about your painting, just take off your glasses, then you won't be able to tell anyways.
There you go. That's what I need to do. That's the way. That and hold them way off the way. Speaking of not being able to tell painting, one other thing I did was I was out at there's a game cafe in Norman, Oklahoma that I stopped in at, and they do resin 3D printing of designs. And I started talking to them. I poked my head in there just to see what they're like and that, and started chatting with the guy there who owns it, and started telling him about Project Wargaming's 2mm figure files. And I've got a bunch of his ancient files I got from them, from Project Wargaming. I got the Celts and the whole ancient collection. So I had him do up some of those figures and print them out on resin. I don't think he tried to change some of the settings away from the recommendation of what they recommended. what Project Wargaming recommended. But the one when he reset them, they came out really nice. I just need to get a chance to start painting them because I got to prime them and then paint them. Because right now they look like red blobs of melted gummy bears, or those rubber the candy jelly candies that are just melted blobs. But when you look at them in a magnifying glass, you can make them out. They're going to be fun to do. But I got those for Mark Bachhaus's rules, Strength and Honor, when those come out. I want to try that out eventually. So I think that'll look good.
Those do look fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah. So other than that, I've got all my different rule sets, all the things picking up that I just haven't tried. I'm kicking myself now because Empress Miniatures just came out with Bohica, and those I had just last year before, end of 2020. I got rid of all my Vietnam games, sent them over across the pond to Stan. Wanted to get into Vietnam Wargaming, so I sent them over there to him, and now I'm thinking, oh, that'd be so fun. But by the way, for any of our listeners, Bohica is an acronym that means bend over, here it comes again. Now, Paul is crediting it to the Vietnam era. I have not found any written documentation on the use of the term Bohica anywhere in the Vietnam era. I do believe the expression originated with 1st Recon in the United States Marine Corps in the late 70s, early 80s, after Vietnam. The reason being is I remember sitting around with a group of guys and somebody coming up with that with some of the weird acronyms. And somebody said that, and they said, oh, that's an Indian name, we could do that. And they came up with that name. So we use Bohica back in 1st Recon. But if any of our listeners can find or give us documented reference to it being used prior to 1979, I'd appreciate it, because then I know somebody plagiarized it. But I think it's more of a modern term than that. But it's a great term for, still sounds like a great Vietnam term. Mm-hmm. But ranks right up there with snafu and fubar. So, but anyway, that's my plug there.
Yeah, when I saw those rules that they came out, some of the pictures that Eureka's putting up online, I thought, oh no, here we go, another period.
Yeah, I know. I'm really trying to, again, not fall into temptation. I'm not going to do it yet. Give it time.
Yeah, I know we had some of the most fun gaming I've ever done was with FNG.
Oh yeah,
war games with 15 Vietnam.
Yeah, yeah.
Goodness. FNG.
That was great rules. Well, I'm gonna pick up the rules, the Bohica rules from Paul. I will get them from Empress Miniatures. Because one, they sound like great job. Paul does a fantastic job on everything he does. Very detailed, not detailed in a bad way, but he knows how to do a good game. So I want to try and I'm going to pick those rules up just so I have them, because I love collecting rules. But the one thing that intrigues me is, and I didn't think about it before, but FNG was great rules with 2-hour wargaming and Texera. They gave a good game, and you could play those solo. Well, listening to the podcast from Wargame Soldiers and Strategies, where they interviewed Paul about his rules, Bohica. They said they can be used solo as well, and are designed. They can be used cooperative and solo. And that was one of the best things about FNG, was it made a great cooperative game. So I'll pick up those rules sometime and have a good read through on them. But they sound good. Definitely sound good. So, but yeah, again, and that probably takes us over to what we had talking about tonight, is kind of our inspiration, what inspires us, and that. So, you've started picking up on the Rhodesian Bush Wars. What inspired you? What motivated you to pick up on that topic?
Oh, this is going to sound terrible and so modern, such modern young kids these days. But honestly, just thumbing around on YouTube,
Yeah.
So, yeah, was it Sean Clark with God's Own Scale? I was watching a lot of his videos, and he was doing it's called Billy Good Wargaming. I think that's his channel on YouTube, and seeing a lot of the AK-47 stuff, it really piqued my interest. I know I think I've done something in the past, like a long time ago with it, back in the 2000s. And I remember it being fun. So it really sparked my interest again. And when I just started thumbing around on like the history of the era, trying to find out like what armies I could collect, because it's kind of like a fun zone. You can pretty much grab whatever you want from the 20th century, throw it into the conflict, and it was historical in some fashion. But really just researching the period, and then I started finding these old like TV newsreels of the Rhodesian Bush War, and I was like, well, I didn't even know this was going on. And this is probably going to surprise a lot of you, especially our English viewers, because I guess there are some people out in this community that have lived through it and fought through it. But I didn't even know it was a thing until recently, where I may have heard about it, but I didn't really know about it in depth. And just looking up these YouTube videos of war correspondents and then watching veterans talk about their experience, I was like, wow, these are some interesting tactics, these interesting situations. I want to give my mind a go at it. And it's probably the militaristic side that I'm dealing with right now is we do war games, and the war games aren't necessarily for fun in my career field. It's more so for building our own knowledge base, building levels of experience. So that way we can adapt in real world scenarios. So I like doing this out of the box and outside of our tactical employment zone or our capabilities, doing with someone else's capabilities, and it's fun for me.
Yeah.
So
Well,
YouTube is how I got into it.
well, what I was surprised when we were talking, and you told me you never, and I told you, oh, what you think about the Wild Geese, the movie The Wild Geese, and you never had seen that. I mean, that was the one that got me motivated for when that came out to try Bush Wars years ago when first time I did it.
So, Wild Geese is still one of the best movies of all time.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, there's some, you watch some of these movies and you think, well, that'd be that's where you get a lot of motivation for scenarios and things like that, and books and such. I know I would have never picked up. I always kept saying, no, I hate Napoleonics. I have no interest in Napoleonics. Napoleonics, they're boring. They're, all that. And I'm not a button counter. I never do it. And then somebody, I forget who it was, recommended I read one of the Richard Sharp books from Cornwell, and Bernard Cornwell. Gosh, sorry guys, it's the rum. And so I read one of those. Sorry?
Where's all the rum gone?
Oh. I need to get some more. Yeah, in fact, the rum, I don't have enough deep bottle up here. Hang on a second.
Well, you guys can't see it right now, but
credit for product placement here.
Yeah, he's pulling out the rum.
Yeah, there's a set of rum. It's called Bumbu Rum, the original. It's spelled BUMBU. It's a Bumbu Rum Company. They make this rum that is absolutely amazing. It has a hint of banana. When you open it and smell it, it smells like bananas, but it is so smooth and goes down so well. So if we do ever post this on the video, here's a bottle of it. It is an empty bottle, which attests to how good it is. Yeah, so maybe we'll get some sponsorship from those guys. Try that. No, but seriously, I picked up and I read and I thought, oh, that sounds pretty good. And right about that time, it was shortly after that time, actually, Sharp Practice came out from Two Fat Lardies. And I thought, oh, that's perfect because I can do some of these because there's some good fighting in the books. And so that's how I got into Napoleonics. Now we've got thousands of 6mm Napoleonics that were from Baccus and Adler that we're painting up, and Now I'm doing all the big battle Napoleonic, so it was my inspiration there. But I find the books and movies, or some of them, are just phenomenal. But then again, you stumble across somebody who does a great figure, and then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, I got to get into that line. I got to try that. So I know Baron's War is one that'll suck you in, because I had no interest in that period until I saw the figures, and then started reading about not only the anarchy, which is before the Baron's War period, and then the Baron's War itself. And so I don't know. So what's going to be our next set of inspiration?
Oh dear, whatever comes past my window, whatever I see scrolling on my phone, whatever I go to see at a game show, whatever I see on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or if a new movie pops up, like I think Tom Hanks came out in a new movie called The Gray or something.
Yeah, you're talking about the where is it, Destroyer Escort Commander?
Yep. Or is it something about submarines?
No, he's a commander of a destroyer escort.
Okay.
And he I have not seen the movie yet. I want to see it. The guy who wrote the book it's based off of? We should have really if we would have prepared this podcast better, our listeners would know. We'd be able to give them all the facts about, this movie was based on this book, which was written by this so-and-so. And
For a podcast of you nonsense.
yeah, occasionally we do, but not too often. But it's supposed to be a really good film about escorting a merchant convoy across the Atlantic. And the senior American commander who's escorting, it's his first convoy that he's ever escorted, his first time in combat. And he's leading groups that are much more experienced than he is into it, supposedly. So I haven't read I haven't watched the movie, I think, and the book sounds real familiar because it was the guy who wrote the Hornblower series. I think it's the same guy who wrote the book that it's based off of. And I can't remember what the guy's name was. It's driving me nuts. I'm not thinking straight tonight. So
Yeah, it's definitely seen that commercial. Instantly made me want to bring out General Quarters and then pull out a bunch of GHQ ships and have at it.
I've got them. I've got them all in that box. There's just tons of them. But yeah, that's that was a good book and a good scenario. It'd be good scenarios too. It's kind of driving me nuts. I know I have the book on my bookshelf somewhere. I just don't know which one it is. And I'm not going to take the time to go through it right now. But I just got done reading a book called where did I put it? Islands of Destiny, which is about the Solomon Islands campaign. So it makes me want to bring out the World War II Marines, and then also some of the naval ships for the Battle of the Slot and some of the Solomon Island naval battles. So I don't know. My inspirations are usually books, sometimes movies, and oftentimes just documentaries or something like that I'll watch. And I'll see something I think, ooh, that sounds interesting. I didn't know anything about that. And suddenly it's a rabbit hole.
So are you saying that you go into the game prior, or do you do your research first?
It's usually I see something that sparks my interest, and then I start reading about it and getting more, and then I get, then I kind of expand my gaming around that. So for instance, what's a good one? Let's look at Sharp, the Sharp series of books years ago when they came, or not when they came out, but when Sharp Practice came out. I had read the books, I saw the rules. I thought, yeah, I'm going to get some of these figures, and I'd buy a few figures, just enough to do a small battle, and thought, yeah, that was fun. But then I'd start reading more about what really happened. Here's what the book said, which everybody knows that's just soap opera for men, or that's a guy soap opera type stuff and not realistic. But then when you start reading some of the rearguard actions fought during the retreat, or some of the actions that happened between scouting parties and things like that, or raids by dragoons again. And, you start to read some of these stories, you start to develop, I'd start to expand more and more. And then, I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll look at these set of rules, these big battle set of rules. And, oh, that could be fun. Let's start doing that. And suddenly, I go from having, 24, 28mm figures by Perry's to having 10,000 6mm Baccus figures, for large scale to do Leipzig or Borodino or something. And it's all based upon those little, I read something and then find something else that has me read more and read again and read or whatever. You were the one who told me about the Empire of the Summer Moon, I think it was. The book about the Indian Wars and the Comanches and that in this area. And so that right there sparked an interest on, ooh, let's pick up some more of these figures and let's start doing this. And you start reading, more and more. So that kind of got me interested.
Okay.
So
you're telling me that you purchased into some Comanches?
A few, but that was there. Yeah, they're not really the proper ones. It's they're the Baccus 6mm design for Pony Wars, because those are more Hollywood style, but they're still at that scale. And the folks around here, believe it or not, don't know the history as much as you would expect. For some of the listeners don't know, I am not, instead of being in North Carolina where I've been for years, I am now out in Oklahoma. And I'm amazed at some of these things that I'd see in Hollywood movies and such like that. A lot of those native tribes, they're all out here, and this is everywhere you go. And some of the native tribes are native tribes from the East that were forced out and pushed out in this area. I mean, you got a big contingent of Cherokee and you got Delaware. And those are all Indians from the East Coast, or Native Americans, whatever term is. The irony is here you see the Plains Indian Museum. They'll call it the Plains Native American Museum. You have things like that. So I don't know what the proper term is. And if I offended anybody, then forgive me. I don't mean to offend anybody by using the term Indian versus Native American, but the history and all the things that occurred are all, we're only an hour's drive from the Red River Valley, and there was so much going down that way. You've got the Chisholm Trail cuts through here, and that's all the Western gunfights that came through that area. So all of a sudden now those are inspiration for history. But yeah, it's, you read a book, you think, ooh, that happened here. And then suddenly, oh, I got to get the figures, got to get the rules. So it's all inspiration.
Just like you said, it starts out with a squad. Next thing you know, you have a brigade.
Brigade. Let's go for Army Group.
Well, more like it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many things though. I mean, I wonder how many people are going to start gathering, as bad as this sounds, are going to start gathering inspiration from the current events going on in Ukraine right now. I know one of the things that I used to like to do in my gaming was to test out scenarios, test out capabilities, like what ifs, and how would I do this, or how would I handle this? Even though it's a game, use it as a simulation as well. And I could see people doing that now with this conflict. Because in 5 years, is that going to be something that people are gaming? Because I know people gamed the Russian-Georgian conflict. They make figures for those. So somebody's going to be gaming this one, and before you know it too.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but the Operation Enduring Freedom, also known as the Afghan War, has actually been quite popular. I think it's more popular than the Russian-Afghan War back in the 1980s. So a lot of people are doing these Taliban insurgencies versus U.S. coalition forces, and I've seen a lot of hype from it, from anywhere from 15 to 28, using Spectre rules, using force on force, using face modern battle, and they'll go simulate Taliban attacking U.S. forces. I don't think there's too many times where they relate them to actual conflicts or battles, but or small skirmishes. But I do know that throughout the war, people do come up with these skirmishes. Um, I wouldn't say it's necessarily like trying to like glorify the fun, but it's definitely trying to understand what's going on out there.
Right. I know that some folks will say, oh, that's tasteless, or no, I won't do that. And that's fine. Whatever everybody's, what's right for one person, it's fine. As long as you're respectful, you're respectful of the period. I have no problem with anybody gaming any period, as long as they're respectful of it and not, glorify there's a difference between gaming a period and glorifying something, in my mind. But that's a podcast for morality. And I think we even had that podcast back. I think that was number 7 or 8, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go on to look on the list, but you mentioned about the popularity of the this one now versus the Russian podcast, out of the Russian period. One of the things that drives interest, if we're talking about movies and books, people in the English-speaking world, and I can only speak for the English-speaking world, have a lot more materials available to them about what happened post, 2001 onward than what happened back in, 1979 to to the 1989, the 10 years there. Because there's very few books in the English language comparatively, and there's very few movies, documentaries, things like that about what happened. But yet the conflict that the Russians fought was just as dramatic in many cases as the conflict that we fought for 20 years. And there's a lot of things that can be learned from that, and some very interesting games. I know there's a movie out that I keep wanting to see about a Russian tank crew trying to get their tank. Was it tank or armored fighting vehicle in Afghanistan? They're trying to get it back to base or something like that. And it's all about just the tank crew. And I can't remember. I know I saw glimpses of it when I watched it. But then again, that creates a scenario. But if more people saw it in the West, then it might become a gaming thing. Gamers, I don't know what gamers in Russian game. Do they game that period? Are they more interested in that period? So where are they getting their inspiration? Who knows?
Speaking of that, though, it's a little off topic, but I do know there's this Russian manufacturer. He creates miniatures and sells them on not eBay. He sells them on Facebook. Yes, not the typical platform I see for selling figures from an actual manufacturer, but he does it. The figures look nice, and they're actually of Alaskan Native tribes. The principalities of the Rus state from the early to medieval period, and then he also sells the Russian colonials for Alaska. It's also
really?
Another very little talked about period.
Huh.
But yeah, he does sell the Native American tribes. I think their name is Tlingit, or I'm probably butchering that word, but yeah, they do use war canoes. They have wooden armor, which kind of make them look exotic, different, but because the Russians know that part of the Alaskan history, he's been able to create those miniatures and have knowledge about that. Whereas here in the English-speaking world, we probably don't know too much about Russian colonization of Alaska.
Yeah, I don't think there's very many, unfortunately, thanks to changes in our educational system. I don't know how many people know anything about Seward's Folly, the purchase of Alaska. Because that was considered at the time a big waste of money. But it became Alaska. We got a lot of oil out of it and gold. So, and great fishing, really good fishing up there. So, what other movies are coming out or have been out there? Oh, I know a movie that's been a big inspiration for wargaming. Starship Troopers.
Oh, yes, it has. Yes, it has.
How many games is based, things that have come out of that are similar to Starship Troopers, not only Starship Troopers, the game that came out with the figures and such, but other spin-offs that people have done similar things. So
I think everybody's associated the Warhammer 40K, the Imperial Guard with the charities with that, at least at some point.
yeah.
Gotta be some level of inspiration, whether it be minute or what have you, but maybe the coincidence of the Imperial Guards and the Tyranids looking so similar isn't necessarily a coincidence.
Well, I'm sure when they first developed when Games Workshop was Citadel Miniatures first came out with the Games Workshop figures, it was Rogue Trader originally. I'm sure that Robert Haline's book Starship Troopers had something to do with it. So, but that was a good one. And then you talk about then you got all the Vietnam movies, all the World War II movies.
I can say, in my mind, just the most played battle ever in miniature wargaming, and one of the greatest movies, and it's Waterloo.
Oh yeah,
Every time.
everybody.
I guarantee you, Waterloo on the Western Hemisphere is the #1 played battle. I mean, people could take me out, tell me I'm wrong, but that's just what I believe after seeing so many people build the armies, play it, sell the army, rebuild the army, and then maybe buy it in a different scale too.
Well, that's the thing too. Waterloo was such a defining battle. It really capped off a campaign. It really halted Napoleon's ambitions or resurgence. But you think about it, why it's so popular? Because of the English have promoted it. The Germans don't promote it as much. They should. They deserve a lot of the credit, even though Wellington made sure that English credit with the victory and not just a Allied victory. I know the French don't promote it too well, too much for some odd reason. Don't know why. But you have that type of promotion. So those type of movies in the English speaking world. I wonder how many movies were missing in the non-English speaking world. Like the movies out of India or China or Japan that talk about some of those things that we may not. Maybe some of the folks who watch that obscure stuff, who watch those periods maybe know about it or know about the movies, but how much the regular public, the average wargamer doesn't know on those and how much that would inspire. So, but I don't know. Going back to Waterloo though, I think they need to remake that movie and remake it accurately and not as an anti-war movie.
Okay, well, as much as we all would like that, that's never going to happen. We all know the way that movies are going these days.
I know. I just watched a remake of The Magnificent Seven, the old cowboy movie with Yul Brynner from the 60s. And they just, they redid it about 5-6 years ago, I think, maybe not that long, but I watched that. That would be a good Wild West scenario.
Is that the one where Channing Tatum's hiding under the floor?
With what?
Channing Tatum hiding under the floor. Is that the Quentin Tarantino movie?
Yeah, it's Quentin Tarantino. Is that Channing Tatum? Channing Tatum? Tatum Channing. Yeah, never mind. There's the rum. Yeah, that was different to say the least. But it was interesting. It was a good movie. It was a fun movie, but I hate to say it, while I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking, okay, what rules would I use for this? Okay, I could use gut shot. That would work. But actually, the man who would be king would work better because it's a larger battle. So you need to do that, for the final fight scene.
Actually, I've seen a real surgence of this rule called Dead Man's Hand. It's really gained popularity, where you'll have posses or gangs, and you'll fight in some town square over a certain scenario. And from what I've been seeing, what I've been hearing, it's very movie-esque. It's you're more so doing cutscenes as opposed to actually doing a Western scenario.
Right.
Which,
Well, Dead Man's Hand's been out for a while. I mean, Foreground made a whole series of buildings for Dead Man's Hand at one point. And so did some other companies. I think it was Foreground did it. But yeah, Dead Man's Hand's been out for a while, probably at least 10 years. But yeah, it is picking up. I am seeing more notices of it. So, but it is, I've never tried it, but I've heard it's good.
I mean, I'm sure if you use the Empress miniatures, John Wayne characters with the Dead Man's Hand,
Yeah.
it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how you do the gunfight, the final gunfight from the John Wayne movie El Dorado, but if I can ever figure that one out, something about John Wayne jumping off a wagon, only able to use his left hand instead of his right. It's got to be an interesting one. So, if you don't know the movie El Dorado, go watch it. It's on Hulu and Netflix.
Another interesting one is it's using a full revolver, not a repeater rifle with one hand.
Yeah.
On horseback while charging and hitting his targets.
Well, that's just it. He had the pistol in one hand, the rifle in the other, the range in his teeth, and that's True Grit, wasn't it? Where he goes charging across the, yeah. And of course, some, got to roll snake eyes or roll double boxcars. He hits, rolls snake eyes, he falls off his horse. So there is to it.
It doesn't need to be accurate nor to be inspirational.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I think, in fact, that's, it's funny. Some of the movies that I've seen in the past have been completely inaccurate and just totally Hollywood hokum. But they've gotten me at least to look at the period and start reading the period. And I got to tell you, an inspiration for me, one of the honest inspirations for me to get into early World War I was Blackadder Goes Forth. Now I know that's set at the last year of the war, and the later part of the war, after they're bogged down in trenches. But it got me to start reading about the period more so. And I know we've been to Ypres and all through the trenches, and we traveled all through there and with the family and that. But that was an interesting for the historic purpose. But it didn't get me interested until the small skirmish or things like that, until I started listening to Blackadder, just because I like the uniforms. And I like, Tony Robinson as Baldric is just the best ever. But watching that got me to start looking at how they, were the uniforms really like that? And so I started reading the books, and I started reading people, and then I started reading about the early war and the BEF, British Expeditionary Forces, and that. And so suddenly now, of course, Paul at Empress is getting too many plugs from us because it's his World War I figures to have. So we can't mention Empress anymore today. Let's pick out a new miniature manufacturer to talk about. Yeah, so it's got me going into World War I. That's what motivated me to do that. So something that is completely Hollywood, way off base, not even close to being accurate, is an inspiration for accuracy. So now I got to find some more inspiration. First of all, I got to get a wargaming center set up. I got to get my own, get my wargaming table back in play and all that stuff, and start being able to have a schedule to model again. But again, eventually. So
that can bring us into a different aspect of what inspires you. So right now we're talking about like themes or periods, or what about scales? Like, how does that inspire you?
That's a good point. Because what motivates me with the different scales, or what gets me thinking, is what level of game do I want to play? What role do I want to take on the game? Do I want to be a squad leader? Do I want to be a battalion commander or whatever? And that leads to how big of a view do I want to have of the battlefield? And so that's what drives my scale. That's what has me fascinated about these 2mm that are coming out, or not coming out, but they've been out for people have made 2mm for years, but they're gaining in popularity. That's what got me, with interest. I thought was so fascinating about Project Wargaming's 2mm figures is when you start to do these big battles, you are looking at hordes of people, hordes of men or women, whatever, and they are tiny when you look at them at a big group. So you're more interested about moving the group around rather than the individual figure. Now, skirmish, I like to be able to see the figure. I like to see what they've got on them. And that's the inspiration for me on scales is what do I want to get out of the game? Do I want to get out of overall being the general with the huge battlefield sweeping view? Or do I want to be the squad leader?
Mm-hmm.
So, what type of view do I want to have? Now, of course, then weapon ranges and things like that impact some of that too, but
I'm not gonna lie, your little piece there just unintentionally inspired me for the 2mm, but the Battle of Gaugamela. Because
yeah,
all I could think of is us tying back to non-historical historical movies that are inaccurate, and of course Alexander takes the cake, and getting the bird's eye view of Gaugamela.
well, it's not as bad as 300. With
that was
the armored rhino or whatever. Yeah, but still, you're right. Yeah, that's a good example. And yeah, for Project Wargaming, his figures, he's got the phalanxes, he's got the elephants, and all of that stuff. You just have to get a good quality printer to print them out.
So just to get this clear, is the elephant the melted gummy bear or the unmelted gummy bear?
Semi-melted gummy bear. Yeah. So I haven't printed off any of the elephants yet. I've just got the cavalry and the guys, I gave the files to the guys to print out for me at the cafe to try, to print them for me. And they, as I said, they didn't do a good job on the thing, but the ones they did are nice. But all I got were the Celtic war bands and then the Roman legions to set off. But that was all I got done on them. I haven't done anything else. These ones were just tests for them. And if I want to do more, then I probably would have to pay them, and I don't want to pay anything yet. So not until I can find some, I can get some other things cleared out and thinned out of my collection before I get anything new. So I just have too much junk. So.
Well, I'm sure that you could use some of the 6mm Revolution trees with your
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I definitely will. I definitely will. And that. So, in fact, thinking of talking about 6mm, I was moving around some boxes. I was trying to find some stuff for work around the house to fix up, and I moved a box, and I found all of my Baccus 6mm American War of Independence figures. Now, my motivation for the American War of Independence has nothing to do with any movie. It had to do with walking the battlefield at Moores Creek. So, you remember that. You went down there a couple times, didn't you?
I did.
Moores Creek is, for the listeners, Moores Creek is a national battlefield in North Carolina. It's south of Wilmington. And it was a battle that was fought in 1776, February 1776, where a contingent of loyalists, a very large contingent of loyalists, they were mostly Scottish, and they were trying to rally support in North Carolina, and a group of revolutionaries, or they were trying to prevent them from getting down to Wilmington, and they wound up controlling a bridge at Moores Creek. And in the nighttime before the battle, they went out to parley with the loyalists on the north side of the creek, and made it look like their defensive lines were on the north side of the creek. But at night, they retreated back to the south side of the creek and set up their defensive lines, and then pulled up all the planks off the bridge. So it's just the main supports going across. Well, when the morning when the loyalists decided to attack the cross, they ran into where the north side of the creek was, and there was no more revolutionaries there, or patriots, whatever you want to call them. So then they wound up, they saw them on the south side, so they had to charge across the bridge where there were no planks. It was just the support beams, and there were 3 support beams. And they led the charge wielding claymore swords and kilts and all that, going across like something out of the 16th century instead of, the 18th century. And needless to say, the loyalists lost, and it effectively stopped the loyalists from gaining control in North Carolina and shifted the main part of the fighting away from North Carolina for a couple years, at least until things changed in the north. It was one of those small skirmishes that had an oversized bearing on history. And I thought that battle was so fascinating. I started reading more about the war in the South and how things developed and such, that's what got me going into the American War of Independence. So tying that back to our main theme of inspiration, we'll do that. Was that a good segue to wrap that back in?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But before you listeners start thinking, well, why didn't they just go through the water, around the bridge, find another crossing? Well, they had to get the direct line to Wilmington, and that was the fastest route. And if you ever go down into that area, it is very thick, dense marsh. I've done quite a few endurance courses through that area, and if you can go faster than a walking pace through some of this neck deep mud, like I'm not even kidding you, mud, then good luck.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen people try to get out of like the actual waterways and try and walk in the mud, and they'll just sink to their toes while we swim past them. No,
Well,
it's very dense and thick. So using the beams or the rails to like skirt across like sideways, is honestly your best option. And they ended up going, was it a 6-pounder that they walked right into?
yeah. Now they, that and a little small 2-pounder or something like that, little tiny thing, on a log, mounted on a log. But those were the 2 cannons they had, the Patriots had. The other thing too, don't forget, at that time period, alligators were not nearly as rare as they are today in that part of North Carolina. So that was another hazard that had to be faced if you jumped into the marshes there.
Water moccasin too, which
Oh,
if you've
gosh,
never heard of a water moccasin, even today, one day it's going to kill you.
Yeah, not nice.
Good luck getting to the hospital one time.
Yeah, too many nasties out there at that time. So again, interesting small skirmish with oversized implications on the campaign. But yeah, that was my inspiration for American War of Independence. That and family connections, but that's a different story.
Oh yeah, let's not talk about that one.
Yeah.
Might lose our U.S. interests.
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, so family connections again. If you look back on family, and I wonder how many people pick up wargaming or interest in wargaming based upon something they've learned about their family history. Like, now chances are they had an interest in a period and they went and found out a member of the family was in that period and they've been gaming it. But I wonder how many people, did some genealogical research or had a family story about somebody who, a father, a grandfather, or a great grandfather who served in one of the world wars, and got interested in recreating that unit or that period or something, or Civil War. Found out they had a Confederate in the closet, or found out they had a Union member in the closet, depending on what part of the state you're from. And wound up doing that. So that's probably another form of inspiration for people. So I don't know. I don't know. There's not much fun in wargaming V2 rockets hitting. So that family member inspiration we won't take. So
I can definitely see with the family member. Like one example would be if you had a grandfather in 12th Bomber Command or something of the sort, you could definitely see getting into or watching the movie Memphis Belle, buying some kind of miniature, whether it be 144 or 1-300, and then modeling a bomber situation, and then you have fighters attack it, and you have to do your fire support. Which
didn't you just you picked up some bombers and fighters recently?
Yeah, I just picked up a total of 8 B-17s, no fire support, unfortunately, but a few 109s, and the whole idea is the same idea what I've got with a Western scenario. So the bomber scenario is the central moving, the parameters of the table is focused around the central group of the bombers. So the bombers don't move on the table unless they lose power and have to fall behind, or something of the sort happens, where they fall out of formation. But the center of the formation is the center of the table. The landscape on the table is what moves around underneath the bombers. Of course, you don't have to change out mats or anything, but everything is relative to the bombers. So if you're going into the bombers, your speed or your movement on the table is increased. But if you're going with the bombers, your movement on the table is decreased. Doesn't really have an effect if you're going laterally with the bombers. But another scenario I have at the same site would be a cattle drive in the Western scenario, where your cowboys protecting cattle drive and bandits have to take your cattle.
That's a good one. That's a good one. You could have so much fun with that one.
Mm-hmm.
So
you could even use it with the new Pony Wars.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. So yeah, I like that. A variation of the rules, combine the rules pig wars with gut shot or with dead man's hand or something like that, and have raiding parties. So
which the new fun one of raiding parties. So I've been doing a lot of research on the Italian Wars, well, the 15mm Italian Wars Army. I haven't painted it entirely yet because I stopped at the launch commands. That also made me look, what was England doing at this time frame? And I saw a little bit of the border wars. I haven't read too much on it, but I've done a little bit of background research. And now Battle Flag, I believe it is coming out with the miniatures for the border wars in 28mm.
Well, that'd be nice.
So if you're into the Elizabethan period, there are miniatures coming out now with like mounted Scotsmen, mounted Yorkshiremen with spears, lances. They're here to take the cattle, so lock them up.
Well, I've got probably about 40 28mm sheep and probably about a dozen 20mm cattle. So that would be a help for that one. So not too many pigs and chickens. I think I've only got about 6 of each of those. Need to get more pigs and chickens.
Yeah, you can never have enough.
Yeah, need those because you can use those for any type of raiding party. Mm-hmm. And raiding games are fun. Whether it's something like French and Indian Wars or whatever. Some of the raiding games can be real fun, and they lend themselves to a good quick evening too. So
yeah, you definitely don't even have to have 2 parties involved. You can have 3 or 4 parties all battling out, competing for the prize.
Right. Yeah. That was a fun thing. First time I ever tried Pig Wars. And that's a good set of rules. If you guys haven't, if anybody hasn't tried them out there, I think you can get them from Wargames Vault or RPG, whatever, one of the online mass rule sites, mass rule selling sites. But just Google it, Pig Wars. Their slogan is Pig Wars, where men are men and pig for money. It's just a good game. It's medieval, or actually dark age, not dark age, Viking age. Saxons and Vikings for the predominant area, where you're literally just going in and stealing cattle, pigs, chickens from somebody else's village. And they're trying to stop you at the same time. Somebody, you can have 4 or 5 sides on there, which is everybody's just trying to get it, fight each other and steal as many cattle and pigs as possible. And the game is always a laugh. It's always a laugh.
It's where you find out who your real friends are. So
yeah, they will stab you in the back. It's just requirement of that game. But it's fun. There's other games too that are like that too, where you can have, just various, anything can happen on that, where it's just, changing sides and we all know that never happened in real life, changing sides in the middle of a battle. Or I like the games and that was just like the War of the Roses, one of the War of the Roses battles, where I did a game one time where, the person who had the commander who came out of it with the most troops was the winner, because it was part of the campaign system. And my allied commander, I went into charge, and my allied, the guy who was supposed to be on my side, held his army back. So my army took most of the brunt and did most of the damage, but was totally wiped out. And the other 2 armies were pretty much decimated. And he came in with his fresh troops, cleared the battlefield, and won everything. So, but that happened, I think, in one of the War of the Roses battles, if I remember correctly. Somebody didn't go in or did go in or something. I forget. I'll have to go back and research.
Definitely sounds like the politics of the area.
Yeah.
For the era. So.
Yeah. No, there was one we were talking about just before we went on. You were talking about something about turnips.
Yeah. So I've been watching a little bit of YouTube, and one of the podcasts on YouTube is called the Plastic Crack Podcast, where it's mostly about plastic. This new era of having these sprues of plastic miniatures. You cut them out, you build them, you create your own armies. There's a lot of vast varieties, but it's all plastic. Me, I'm not a huge fan of the plastic because I like some. If I want a 40 figure or figure base, I want a hat to it. I want to be able to whack it at the dog and hurt the dog. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that, but I just like the heft behind it. For them, one of the guys, his name's Steve, he's more into grimdark and these sci-fi elements, but also into bolt action. Well, this thing that he's been following and building towards is called Turnip 28. A lot of you guys have probably heard about this so far because it's really getting steam. And what you do is you take your sprues that you haven't built yet, or extra sprues that you just don't want to throw away, and you take all the Napoleonic armor or Napoleonic weapons and backpacks and maybe legs or trousers, and then you put medieval helmets or arms or weapons on them. You can add like some little like weird cultish character faces to them. Like I think Oathmark is the one that has some weird cult character faces and zombies, and then you put a little piece of tuft on the back, spray it up as if they're infected, and it's these groups of armies that worship turnips because it's set in a post-apocalyptic future where the only thing left to eat is this turnip, and this turnip kind of like turns you. So
I'm just looking. It's gardensofhecate.com. We'll have to put a note on this on the show notes.
Yeah, it will be in the show notes if you want to check this out. It's definitely interesting, and some of the artwork that these guys do with these miniatures is just insane. It's cool. I'm never going to personally do it, but seeing what they do, it's made me want to be a little inspired to do it. I just haven't gotten around to ever like buying miniatures just for that purpose.
It's definitely a funny concept, but again, it goes back to, just using, I'd love to know where they got their inspiration, probably a garden salad or something, or looking at those sprues of all the stuff that you have left over, that, all the helmets and heads and things like that extra you may have from a set, and doing something with them.
Yeah. And it's not really like anything wrong in that universe or that world. So you can let your mind loose and just create whatever comes to the heart.
That's funny.
It's quite cool.
That's funny. Yeah, I just looked at the link you sent me on the phone, and that's definitely some good quality work. The guys can paint, that's for sure. So they look like I like the guy in the surf's outfit, you know, looks like he's a medieval surf, but he's got a musket slung over his shoulder. That does well. And it looks like they designed to be that way, not just some random slap together. So they did a nice job. My compliments to them. They're a lot better at it than I am.
Yeah, I think one of the most under talked about or less talked about aspects of the hobby is the art, because really people are building things like sculpting a face is art. Building a miniature, whether it's somebody's already built something for you and you just kind of put it together, but you building it and you painting it is actually artistic work. And it really is inspiring whenever you see some of these people's work, especially with all the media that we have now, like Twitter and Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. I think my wife's even said, "Oh, there's wargaming on TikTok. You should get on TikTok." No, I'm not doing it, but it's out there.
Do your figures dance? Do they go on TikTok dance?
Play some funky jazz music. I'm not sure.
There you go. Now, you talk about that being inspiration. Some of that to me is just depressing, because I look at I'll look at somebody who has a figure from a company and I have the exact same figure, and I look at how I painted it, now they painted it, and I think, why do I bother? Because some of these people are just so darn good. It's not even funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely one area you can't get yourself down in.
Yeah.
But you can at least learn. It's a great way to learn. Like, I don't really talk to people about it, about my painting and the way I do things, but I don't highlight at all. I'm super basic in that manner. I just slop some paint on, maybe put a shade on certain areas if it needs it, and then throw it out on the table, because at 3 or 4 feet away, I'm not going to notice the difference between this little high raised piece of metal being highlighted or not. But there's been a few models that I thought about and I care about. Like if they're from AB Miniatures, I'm going to try and use some of the highlighting that people have inspired me to do. Like if I want, what's it, Johan Sandals, if he's a Swedish or Finnish bureaucrat, or a Swedish bureaucrat, my bad. And I saw an AB model that I wanted to paint up as him. So I actually took my time. I drew the inspiration from what I've seen on these videos, and I took the time to put the highlights on. So
that's nice. I found that I just use shading and contrast paints in shades. I block paint and shade, and that just, for me, that works. But again, if I have a figure that I really like and I really want it to stand out on the battlefield and be different, I convince somebody else to paint it for me. So, I mean, Riddick, who we've had on the show, he could paint like nothing else. My command figures for the Baccus game, we got a bunch of Adler. They're actually Adler 6mm figures, but they're all the commanders that are going to be on the generals and things for Leipzig. We're all done by Riddick, and they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. And then when I look at what I've done, my block painting's fine. It's just, I can't do that. I can't capture that true artistry that some of the people can do out there. I think that's amazing. It's a talent that I don't have.
So when we do the entire battle, or 3-day battle of Leipzig, what you're saying is we're going to be playing up pictures of the entire battlefield, but a few close-up shots just of the commanders.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All the pictures will be taken from a 3-foot distance. Stand on a ladder and get the whole 10x12 table, things like that. So, or 8x10 table. Excuse me. I said 10x12. 8x10.
Well, you said now we have to go bigger.
Yeah, well, that may not be too bad, but I'm using the base. We're using a 3-inch base size, and because we're using blue square rules, the table has to be so many base sides across, and that's how it's, to recreate that map, because it's the old Meldrum War Games Club data and map and rosters that we're using for that. So again, little plugs in for those guys. They've got some good scenarios.
Definitely the old Melbourne War Game Group. Like they have helped with Napoleonic wargaming with Blue Shirt, because it's set all there in a package for you with these orders of battles, the battlefield layouts, the entire scenario books. Yeah, the work they've done is amazing. I'm so glad they're able to share it online.
Yeah, they've actually started to ask for donations to cover their costs on doing it. And I'll tell you what, they're not asking nearly enough, because the work they've done is first class all the way through. Again, inspiring. So, but anyway, I'm looking at the time. We've been chatting for a while. I have to get up at 5:30 in the morning for work tomorrow. I know you're a couple hours behind me, so you don't have to get up quite the same time. Or it's later for you. So I think we're going to have to probably wrap this one up. I think what we're going to try to do, folks and listeners, is get ourselves back on a routine to do this. And we are still, I have guests lined up, people who are interested in being on the show. I think we need to ensure that we can be some sort of regular cadence to these to make it worthwhile to the folks that want to listen. And want to help out. I do want to continue back up with game nights, because I thought that was a pretty fun show, and get those back up. Plus, we were able to donate money to charity, which is another good cause. I want to get that back on the road again. But as I said, things have been very difficult last year, and hopefully we're rounding a corner soon and can get back into the swing of things. But time will tell. So Collin, what's on the future for you for the next couple of weeks? Anything you're going to get done or commit to?
Mostly, my test is coming up.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm taking the test to be a pilot. So once I'm through that, then I can go back to as much warm gaming as possible. Who knows? Maybe I'll bust out something I haven't touched in a while. Get back on speed.
I think we still need Russian infantry.
I'm looking at some Russian guard. Yeah, the Grenadier Guard right in front of me. So.
Well, paint what makes you happy, but yeah, get that studies in, get that done, and do well on that. And folks listening, I'll try and get this. We're now taping this on the 27th of February. We'll try and get it out sometime in the first few days of March. And then we'll try and get a regular cadence going, and then getting back once we're got the cadence going and all the bugs worked out, we'll start bringing guests back in and making these things interesting, hopefully. Because I know you'll get bored hearing us ramble.
You're not already.
Yeah, well, you should probably already be bored. I wouldn't blame you one bit. We should probably I think next time we do this, Collin, we should take a hint out of War of the Rocks, their podcast. For those of you who don't know, War of the Rocks is a podcast. War on the Rocks is a podcast that talks about foreign affairs and military strategies and the real life, not wargaming. Really good podcast if you're interested in that type of subject matter. They don't produce frequently, but when they do come out with a show, it's an excellent show, very thought-provoking discussions. But what they do, the War on the Rocks, and they do every show at the end of every show asking people what is their cocktail of choice, and they encourage people to have cocktails while they're taping their show. So I think next time, Collin, we're going to have a drink in front of us, sit down and chat and plan it out.
Don't worry, I always have a drink in front of me.
Well, what was that old line from, I think it was Weird Al Yankovic or somebody like that? I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy.
My line is taken from Wild Keys right after I saw it, and it's I want my liver to be buried separately with full honors.
All right. Well, with that, we'll call it a night. So everybody take care and thank you for listening. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for listening to one of our less polished episodes. Before we sign off completely, however, I wanted to ask that each of you listening consider providing a donation to the people of Ukraine in their fight to save their country from Putin's aggression. As with any conflict, the trauma faced by the populace is severe, and the people need help from the outside world. In our show notes, I've included a list of reputable charities that provide assistance to those impacted by this war. We would appreciate that you take the time and to make a donation of any size to either one of these charities or any of the other reputable charities out there supporting the people of Ukraine in their plight. Once again, thank you for listening. We look forward to the next time. And if you have any questions, comments, or thoughtful criticism, we'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, we'll have the Ukrainian national anthem play us out. Thank you.